Good afternoon, everyone. I apologize. We are experiencing a few technical difficulties right now. Our host, Michael Rausch, is currently working on reconnecting. In the meantime, I will take us through some of the housekeeping slides. Today's webinar is Guided Group Discovery, Paving the Way to Work in Financial Well-Being. Our moderator, once he calls in, is going to be Michael Rausch. He's the director of the Real Economic Impact Network at National Disability Institute.
Hi, Katie. I'm in.
Oh, great. So this is Michael, and at this point, I will turn it back over to Michael to lead us through these slides and then get us started on the webinar and take us through everything. So glad to have you with us, Michael.
Great. Hi, everyone. Yes, this is Michael with National Disability Institute. Sorry about that. We were in the practice session, and after that, WebEx kept freezing up. And so, Katie, I am going to ask that you advance the slides just in case. I called in instead of going in on the computer. So thank you all for your patience, and we're sorry for the technical issue. So to get started, if you're listening to the webinar, the audio for today's webinar is being broadcast through your computer. Please make sure your speakers are turned on or your headphones are plugged in. You can control the audio broadcast via the audio broadcast panel. If you accidentally close the panel, you can reopen by going to the Communicate menu at the top of the screen and choosing Join Audio Broadcast. If you do not have sound capabilities on your computer or you prefer to listen by phone, you can dial 1-650-479-3207. The meeting code is 666-901-113. Note, you do not need to enter an attendee ID. Next slide, please. Real-time captioning is provided during this webinar. The captions can be found in the Media Viewer panel, which appears in the lower right corner of the webinar platform. If you do not see the captions, you need to open the Media Viewer panel by selecting the Media Viewer button in the upper right corner of the webinar platform. If you want to make the Media Viewer panel larger, you can minimize other panels like chat, Q&A, and/or participants. Submitting questions. For Q&A, please use the chat box or Q&A box to send any questions you have during the webinar to me, Michael Rausch, or NDI admin, and we will direct the questions accordingly during the Q&A portion. If you're listening by phone and not logged into the webinar, you may also ask questions by emailing them to me at mroush@ndi-inc.org. Please note this webinar is being recorded and the materials will be placed on the National Disability Institute website at www.nationaldisabilityinstitute.org. If you experience any technical difficulties during the webinar, just like I did at the beginning, thank you to our NDI admin and Katie Achenbach for getting me back in. But you can use the chat box to send a message to the host, NDI admin, or you may also email Katie Achenbach at KAUCHENBACH@ndi-inc.org. Great. Thank you. Next slide. Perfect. National Disability Institute. So for those of you who are new to attending one of National Disability Institute's webinars, I do want to spend a few minutes to share with you some information. So at the National Disability Institute, we envision a society in which people with disabilities have the same opportunities to achieve financial stability and independence as people without disabilities. Our mission at the National Disability Institute is to collaborate and innovate to build a better financial future for people with disabilities and their families. To learn more about National Disability Institute, go to our website at www.nationaldisabilityinstitute.org. If you're not a part of the Real Economic Impact Network, we hope that you will join. It's free to join, and it's an alliance of organizations and individuals dedicated to advancing the economic empowerment of people with disabilities. It includes nonprofits, community organizations, asset development organizations, financial education initiatives, federal, state, local government agencies, and individuals and their families. All partners are joining forces to embrace, promote, and pursue access to and inclusion of people with disabilities in the economic mainstream. To learn more, please go to our website. Next slide, please. So great. So today we are going to spend some time learning more about guided group discovery and how this strategy or how these tools pave the way to work and financial well-being. In my opinion, this is one of the best tools I've seen in the field, and it really complements the work that many are doing in the financial well-being space as well. Our agenda for today is to provide an overview of guided group discovery. We're also going to explore implementation strategies and partnerships that have been successful in assisting both youth and adults with disabilities in promoting employment outcomes. We'll also talk about, we'll gain access to extensive free resources to support employment outcomes and partnerships. We're also going to spend some time sharing examples of how guided group discovery is a beneficial tool for financial educators and financial coaches. We'll spend some time to really look at what are those different opportunities as financial educators and financial coaches, where the resources of the guided group discovery can come into play that we'll learn more about today. So the next slide. So with that, we're fortunate today to have Dr. Rebecca Salon with us to present. Rebecca is the project director for the National Center on Leadership for Employment and Advancement of People with Disabilities, also known as the LEAD Center. Rebecca is a recognized national leader in policy and program development with an emphasis on cutting-edge demonstrations that promote employment and economic self-sufficiency for individuals with significant disabilities. We're grateful to have Rebecca with us today and to be able to share this information with us. So with that, Rebecca, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Oh, thank you so much, Michael. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this webinar. We're very excited to be sharing our information. So I'll be talking about guided group discovery and how we can use it to pave a way to both work and financial well-being, not just for people with disabilities, but for anyone really who faces barriers to employment, who may be struggling to figure out their next step. For those of you who aren't familiar with the LEAD Center, we are the National Center on Leadership for the Employment and Economic Advancement of People with Disabilities, and we're a collaborative of disability, workforce, and economic empowerment organizations led by National Disability Institute, and we are fully funded by the U.S. Department of Labor's Office of Disability Employment Policy. And our mission is to advance sustainable individual and systems level change that results in improved competitive integrated employment and economic self-sufficiency outcomes for people across the spectrum of disabilities. And this is our website, and I'll tell you a little about what you'll find there. One of the things that you'll find on our website is a link to a knowledge translation consortium that has information on the, I think currently 36 federally funded national training and technical assistance centers on employment and disability. So there really are a lot of places out there that are focused on employment and disability. The LEAD Center is the only one that also focuses on economic self-sufficiency, because we really see that important connection between employment and having a good life. That's one of the major reasons. There are many reasons why people work, but one of the major reasons is that so you have a livelihood and so that you have access to the things that you want in life, and so that you can fulfill your own personal vision for the future. And this has been a major focus of LEAD Center's work it's now over 6 years. One of our areas has been in customized employment. Another has been on financial education and financial capability. In 2014, a new Workforce Act was passed. It was the first new Workforce Act in 15 years, called the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, WIOA. And for the first time, the federal government defined customized employment, so it became a legitimate strategy that is in federal law. And for those of you who don't know much about customized employment, it's defined as competitive integrated employment, so people not being segregated but working in typical workplaces for an individual with a significant disability based on an individualized determination of their strengths, needs, and interests. So one of the things that customized employment looks for is those things that someone can contribute to a workplace. It's designed to meet the specific abilities of the individual and the needs of a business or employer, and carried out through flexible strategies. So it sounds kind of simple, that you would look at what someone has to offer, you would look at what an employer needs, and you would match them. But that they're actually it's something that requires some real focus and some skill in being able to create customized jobs for people. So the first step in customized employment is called discovery, and it is what it sounds like. Discovery seeks to find out who a person is right now. So it really digs deep into what their interests and preferences are, what their skills are, and what contributions they might be able to make to an employer, and under what conditions will they be successful in a workplace. So it looks at all of those things, and it's used to match a job seeker and their capabilities with an employer's needs. And customized employment for most of its history had been a very individual, one-on-one, facilitated approach to employment, where you would just work with an individual. But with WIOA, with the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, there was a lot more opportunity for programs to work with the workforce system or to work in collaboration with other programs. And so it seemed like it might be a good idea to be able to do something in small groups, since people do training in small groups, people run job clubs, people do all kinds of things where people could learn from and support each other. The other reason that we wanted to pursue and design something that was a group discovery process is that discovery and customized employment really are universal designs. So although they were originally designed for people with disabilities, they really are applicable to anyone who's trying to figure out what their next step is, or for anyone who might be experiencing barriers to employment. If some of you have a family member who's in high school or college who might be trying to figure out the next step, we encourage you to look at these materials. It really is useful to focus on what someone has to offer in a different way. And the reason that customized employment is important is that it circumvents a comparative approach. So especially for people who might have significant disabilities, they might not be as competitive in a traditional interview process or just by putting in an application online. So our traditional job development strategies are where you do an assessment, and vocational assessments traditionally identify what you cannot do as well as what you can do. So it's not fully strengths-based. People develop resumes. Again, if you're someone with a significant disability or you don't have much of a work history, your resume may not be competitive, so that it puts you at a disadvantage. People practice interviewing. Some of us do that better than others. People respond to posted jobs, fill out applications, many of which are online, go through interviews. So if you're not someone who's going to be able to represent themselves well in a traditional job search, a customized approach offers you a wonderful alternative. So discovery actually helps to identify those things that you do well, your strengths, skills that you may not have noted were skills that an employer might need. It creates a document, so it could be a profile, it could be a portfolio. People increasingly are doing video resumes where people do film clips with their iPhone or iPad or other technology that shows an employer what you can do. So if you've had work experiences, if you've done volunteer work, it would be a way to show someone, a potential employer, what you can do. You can videotape references, people talking about what your skill set is if you're not someone who's going to be able to represent yourself well. So there are alternatives to that. But discovery looks at your strengths and pulls that into some kind of profile. It also uses informational interviews so that as you're developing your discovery document and starting to identify employers who might need what you have to offer, you start meeting with employers. So you start identifying employers and setting up a time to learn more about their business and really find out what would meet their need. Because customized employment only works if you're really meeting the need of the employer as well as the need of the job seeker. It also helps people build a network around themselves to create additional connections. There's research that indicates that somewhere in the vicinity of 80% of the jobs that people get are never even posted. So that people get jobs through people they know. Many of you on this webinar may have gotten jobs through family connections or friend connections. One of the things that the customized approach does is to help you build that support network, to help you open doors to employers for informational interviews or for an actual job. And then it matches your skills with an employer's needs, creates a kind of employment proposal so that you may not be responding to an actual job description. And the reality is that most of us don't do what our job descriptions say anyway. And if you've been in your job for any amount of time, chances are your job has become a customized job over time. You know, people see what you do really well. That becomes more and more of what you get to do. If you're a really good trainer, if you're a very good writer, you get to do more of that and perhaps not do as much of other administrative tasks because other people can do that. So it's something that, then becomes a proposal that you can make to an employer where you can show how it would meet their needs. So let me tell you about the resources that are available. So in any customized approach, and there are a number of different ways that you can do this, there's an information gathering piece, and that's what we're calling discovery. There's the written summary of what was learned in discovery, and that could be a profile or an employment blueprint. There's an opportunity to pull that information together, to get people together to think through what the next step would be, what employers you're going to contact, what skills or education people might need as part of this process, setting up informational interviews or networking events to learn about what employers need or what might be needed in your community, and then proposing or negotiating a job opportunity. So regardless of the approach that you use, those are kind of the standard components of customized employment. And as I noted, initially it was just facilitated discovery. We're going to talk some about guided group discovery today, and I'm also going to touch on self-guided discovery and differentiate those for you. But those are the three main approaches for discovery. So guided group discovery was adapted from the work of Mark Golden Associates, Griffin Hammis Associates, and Transcend. And those are the three organizations that have done the most in customized employment. They've developed most of the materials, so they all worked with us at the Lead Center to develop this approach to guided group discovery. It's a process that involves self-reflection, always a good thing. It offers people the opportunity to learn about themselves, to learn about others, and to receive feedback from others. And it's potentially for anyone. Again, it's a universal design, but not necessarily for everyone. And what I mean by that is that it really works best if people enjoy working with others. There are people who would not want to be in a group process, to be figuring out their next employment steps, and perhaps self-guided discovery or facilitated discovery would be a better approach for them. But if people do enjoy working with others, have one or more barriers to employment, and that could just be that I can't figure out what my next step should be, or it could be that I experience a disability, or I am homeless, or any one of a number of things. That someone would have a specific condition of employment that needs to be addressed for them to be successful. And we'll talk about that a little bit, but it could be that someone really can't start work until 10 o'clock because they take medication in the morning and it takes a while for that to stop their tremors. And so they really can't be effective until that, so their hours need to be from 10 to 6 instead of 9 to 5. So that could be an example of a condition of employment, or that you need to work in a very quiet atmosphere or something like that. It's most successful for people who've been unsuccessful with traditional approaches, and you need to be able to stay focused on a topic for at least 20 minutes, even if it's with support. So when we say it could be for anyone but not for everyone, if you don't meet some of these some of these requirements, it may not be the approach for you. You can really use it, though, in any program. It's very useful for an initial assessment of skills, contributions, and conditions of employment. And with some of the partners that we've been piloting guided group discovery, they're starting to use it as early as age 14 with students who have individualized education plans, students who are in special education programs. And that's the age at which they start doing transition planning. So if you start to develop a discovery profile in your young teen years or even your older teen years, you can keep building on it as you discover new skills and new interests, and as you have summer work experiences or more chores around the house. So it's a useful assessment of skills that doesn't require that you have a degree or that you have to use any special materials for. The process also identifies supports needed and partners to bring in. So the Lead Center has done guided group discovery with the public workforce system at American Job Centers, AJCs, with vocational rehabilitation, with developmental disabilities administrations, centers for independent living, behavioral health organizations, schools. We've worked in homeless programs, in juvenile corrections programs, pre-release programs in prisons. So it's been useful in a number of settings and with different partners. And we really encourage that partners work together so that in some cases vocational rehabilitation and the American Job Center will co-lead a guided group discovery process. That the guided group discovery process creates a blueprint for employment that guides a plan and job development. And the blueprint is a great place to add in financial goals so that as people are thinking about why they want to work, it's important to think through what those resources, how those resources can benefit them, how they can help someone achieve goals for themselves or a vision for the future for themselves. So, that's one of the many places, I think, where you can work in planning for financial goals, financial education, and things like that. The process promotes braiding and leveraging of resources across systems. So in some cases, several systems might be supporting someone. Someone might be part of a program at a Center for Independent Living and also receive services from vocational rehabilitation and be enrolled in the American Job Center, so that they're all providing resources to help someone. But the best part is that it has the ability to lead to success for all. And if that group of agencies helps someone get a job, it counts as a positive outcome for all of them. And it's based on certain values. So each stage of the process supports the premise that there are unlimited ways to make a living in the world, and that's increasingly true. You do hear about people, having, in the gig economy, having multiple smaller jobs that together make for a good livelihood, and that there's a place for everyone to make a contribution and earn a living, that all people are viewed as employable and can make a contribution to the economic well-being of a business, and that as facilitators of these processes, that we never control the outcome, that the person who is the center of the job search is the key decision maker and gets to approve every aspect of a plan, because it's really their job search. So even if we don't agree with it, we support it. We've provided here a link to all of the tools, and as Michael said in the introduction, these are all available free for download. We created a facilitator manual that guides you step by step through running a group, so that you don't have to go through any particular training to be able to do that. There's a comprehensive PowerPoint that also walks you step by step. You can use it in running a group, and it has notes on the bottom, as is true in the facilitator manual, that give you suggestions for what you could say at this point if nobody's talking, or to get the conversation going more deeply or something like that. There's a participant workbook that the people who are part of Guided Group Discovery capture their information in, so information about their support network, information about their skills and contributions and conditions of employment, and all of those things get captured in the participant workbook. And that all feeds into a blueprint for employment. And we have the participant workbook both as a downloadable document, but also as an online document, so that you can put in your information online, create your own account, and it will automatically populate into the blueprint for employment. So people have the option of doing it either way. And at this link at the bottom, you find links to the online participant workbook, as well as the paper copies of all of these. But these are, you can download the PowerPoint, you can download the facilitator manual, and they really are extremely user-friendly. We were very careful to do that, and we keep hearing from people that they are starting their own guided group discovery groups, that the parents group who have all transition age youth with disabilities has been using it for a year, just on their own. So it's designed so that you can use it without having to have gone through a whole lot of training. It's divided into 5 lessons. So the first one is an introduction to guided group discovery and the beginning of helping people identify who their employment team is, who they know who could be part of their employment support team. The second lesson is interests and contributions. The third focuses on conditions for employment, what kind of accommodations someone might need to be successful, and when and if to disclose your disability. And I'm going to go into a little more detail on each of these. The fourth lesson is everyone's favorite, and that's the art and science of networking. And the fifth lesson pulls it all together into the blueprint, and people come up with action steps. The materials are arranged to do it originally, as once a week for 5 weeks, sessions that were about an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on the size of your group. But what we've found in doing this is that, they are easily adaptable. So the people who we did a statewide guided group discovery project in Oregon, in 6 school districts, and they created 45-minute lessons so that they could fit it into the school day and do it over, a good part of a semester and time it so that they had a blueprint for employment toward the end of the school year, just in time for summer youth employment, so that it guided where they went to do that. People who used it in homeless shelters with people with disabilities or other barriers to employment do it in less than 5 weeks because people are transient, and if you want the same people to come back, you need to do it in a more compact way. So it's adaptable. It doesn't have to be done in any, depending on the setting that you're working in. But each lesson provides an overview. There are assignments. So if there was an assignment the week before or the session before, there's a chance to review that. And then there's content and activities and a summary and perhaps instructions for the next assignment. So lesson 1, the intro to guided group discovery, people get to know each other, talk about different ways to approach a job search, present about discovery and the blueprint, and then people identify their employment network and share that with each other, because as they share it with each other, they think of other people who could be in their own network. And their assignment is to interview people in their personal network about what skills they think that person might have. So it's another way to get positive feedback. You end up asking people what you like and admire about me, what you think I do well, where you think my interests lie, so that the self-reflection part, you are learning more and more about yourself and feeling better and better about yourself. In the second lesson, I continue to identify interests and skills and tasks. They focus on positive personality traits, and there are suggestions for how to do that so that people really, again, start to see really positive things about themselves. Identify vocational themes, and those themes might help people think more broadly about the kinds of jobs and the kinds of employers that might be a good match for what that person has to offer. And they create a contributions chart with at least one member of their team, identify a few local businesses that could match their vocational themes and benefit from their contributions. So even at lesson 2, they're already starting to do job development. The third lesson looks at the conditions under which you would be successful, what things are kind of non-negotiable and what things are, it would be really nice to have a corner office with windows, but I don't need that to be successful. But I do need to be able to work someplace where I'm only getting instructions from one person. Because if 3 or 4 people can give me work, I'm going to not know what to do first. Those kinds of things. People get to focus on individual job accommodations, and there are exercises to help them figure out what might assist them. And this also helps people understand more about their own specific disability or barrier to employment as they think that through. And then a lot of time focused on when you disclose personal information and when and how and if you want to disclose that you have a disability. And again, there are lots of activities that help people think that through, and it's a highly individualized personal decision that people make depending on their situation, because a lot of people have disabilities that aren't apparent, but might really need accommodation. So when do you let a potential employer know about that? Again, always a very good discussion. The art and science of networking, people talk about the importance of personal contacts in their job search. They continue to map out their own personal network. So if they're active in a faith community, who do they know there that might be able to open a door? And it doesn't have to be close connections. It really could be someone that you see infrequently or someone who works someplace where you frequent on occasion. People focus on developing an individual networking pitch and practice that with each other. And I have an example of that. So these are the guidelines for developing a networking pitch. So people are encouraged to smile and introduce themselves. Name drop. So if the person was recommended, if someone said, oh, my mother, works with your brother, and, that just to tell people what the recommendation was, state the type of work you're interested in doing, describe your abilities or positive personality traits related to that work and the job that you're seeking. Give an example, something specific of tasks you could offer the company, highlight at least one success, make a specific request, for example, for an informational interview or for a referral. Do you know anyone who's hiring people who have my skill set? Or just ask people for advice and then thank the person. So they get to do that. Here's an example that they use in the training. So, hi, my name is John Doe, D-O-U-G-H, and I am interested in a career in baking. Sharon Hill, your neighbor, recommended that I talk to you. I'm going to culinary school in the fall, but in the meantime, I need to get some work experience. I'm good at working with dough, making pastry, and decoration. My friends and family all ask me to make cakes on their birthdays, so that's the success. Would you or someone be able to use someone like me for the summer? So that very short paragraph got in all of those things. And when we started doing the pilot in Oregon, the statewide pilot, one of the young men who had just finished his networking pitch, and it was nearing summer, stopped into a business that he frequented on a regular occasion. He would go in to buy a soda or something else, and he used his networking pitch and was hired on the spot. It was just our best success. He hadn't even finished the whole guided group discovery process. But I think being able to practice it in a group and get feedback gives you that kind of confidence to be able to use it. So in lesson 5, they continue to practice their networking pitch. They look at the information that they had in previous lessons to see if there are other people to add, other skills that they want to highlight, other conditions of employment that they've thought about. They update their blueprint, come up with action steps. Sometimes people invite in employers to that last session to just talk to the group. Sometimes the last session happens in an American Job Center so that people can enroll in those services that offer training and access to a large cohort of employers who are looking for employees. So those are all things that happen in that last session, and then there's a celebration for people having completed it. I also wanted to tell you for a moment about self-guided discovery. So self-guided discovery is more for people who would do better on their own, people who perhaps are a bit more capable of staying on track, or who have their own strong support network to support them. But we also developed a self-guided discovery facilitators guide, helping people discover their own path to employment, that really is useful for anyone. Again, it's another universal design that would be fine. It's much more condensed than guided group discovery because you don't have the interaction and the group work in it. But gives you a path to figure out, to go through the same self-reflection and figure out what your vocational themes are, what your skills and interests and contributions might be, what your conditions for employment. So it's a shorter facilitator's guide with appendices to help you along the way, that have planning tools for people to use, a little assistance on developing vocational themes, and an employment toolbox. So that also is available at this link for download because we're a federally funded project, so these resources are all free. We have some webinars on guided group discovery, so we provided a link there. And there's a wonderful document developed by the Workforce Innovation Technical Assistance Center, WINTAC, called Essential Elements of Customized Employment for Universal Application. And it's like a single document that gives you the most important things about customized employment. So if you wanted to just read one thing about customized employment, I would advise you to open that one, because it just kind of is organized in a way that makes it really easy to figure out how to engage employers and how to do discovery and those kinds of things. It's a really nice resource. So in the last minute, because we wanted to leave time for questions, and I hope people are typing questions into the chat box or Q&A, and if you're not, please do that now. This is the Lead Center's website. We're leadcenter.org. So we have a section on customized employment, and if you click on that, you'll find many resources and webinars, including, if you don't have access to this PowerPoint, if you just go to our website and click on that, pretty close to the top, you'll find the guided group discovery materials and the self-guided discovery materials and the essential elements of customized employment, but then many other resources. We worked with Mark Golden Associates and Griffin Hammis and Transcend and asked them to identify their own resources that they thought were the best, and we have them posted there. So it's kind of a one-stop place to get good information. There's also a financial literacy and capability section where we've done a lot of work to integrate that into the employment planning process and the employment process. So there's financial health assessments and many other good resources. And our most recent addition to the website is the Road to Inclusive Career Pathways. And if you click on that, you'll see a roadmap that looks like the picture on the screen. And within that, like under Youth with Disabilities, there's a section on financial literacy. Under Employer Connections, there's a benefits to employers of customized employment. I think under capacity building, there's a section on work incentives and benefits planning. So there's a lot of good information there. And we just also wanted you to know about the DRIVE website, Data and Resources to Inspire a Vision for Employment. If you go to drivedisabilityemployment.org, or if you go to the Lead Center website, there's a link to this on our homepage. You'll see this little map, and you can just click to open it. You can get disability employment information about your state, the last 3 years of publicly available information, from something like 90 different data sources. So if you want to know how the schools are doing, or vocational rehabilitation, or the workforce system, or Social Security information, poverty statistics, and things like that, that's there. There are state profiles that talk about the policies and planning that happens. You can compare more than one state. So it's another, just really useful resource. And these are all the ways you can connect with the Lead Center and my email, as well as the email of 2 other people who work a lot in this area. And with that, I want to turn it back to Michael. And thank you so much again for letting me be part of this.
Great. Thank you so much, Rebecca, and thank you for sharing this information. This is great. What we wanted to do before we get into the Q&A is just have a little bit of a conversation about incorporating these tools into financial education and financial coaching programs, but also, we can look at it the other way, that if we're providing guided group discovery, it's also looking at where we can incorporate financial education. From the field, we have received feedback from financial coaches and financial educators who have been using this tool through their program. And so we want to share some of those examples. As we talk about financial education and we're doing financial coaching, more often than not, employment is part of the discussion. We need wages to be able to help achieve our financial goals. And so guided group discovery and the resources shared today have been or can be added to the toolbox for financial education workshops and one-on-one financial coaching sessions. As financial educators, we talk with individuals about setting goals. And as Rebecca shared, one of the topics is interest in contributions that assist individuals in identifying their interests and skills. And this can help in understanding not only their work interests, their skills, and their tasks, but also help us in understanding one's financial goals. This section also focuses on the positive personality traits, and I think that's an important component as well because as financial educators and as financial coaches, this sheds some insight on potentially the behaviors of the individual and what is important to them and how potentially they would be managing their money or really focusing on, okay, what are the additional topics that I really need to focus on. I really find this useful in understanding how an individual or to help motivate the individual to really achieve their financial goals. So the guided group discovery and the different materials are really beneficial in the goal setting discussion as well. Also, groups have shared about how they've incorporated some of the lessons into the spending plan development and as an additional tool. So as an individual creates their spending plan, it might determine that the individual either needs to decrease their expenses or enhance their employment status by increasing their income to meet the needs. So the lessons that were identified can help supplement that whole conversation when we're developing the spending plan and really identifying if we do need to increase our income and how we can enhance our employment status. And as I mentioned about the interests and contribution, the skills and tasks, it's really looking at how that's translating to money management skills. I think the other piece that's really important that we've heard from organizations is that it's been helpful in identifying the circle of support for money questions and advice. I think it was lesson 4 that highlights the mapping out your own network of the friends, families, helpers, etc. And as financial educators or financial coaches, we oftentimes guide individuals to community resources and really talk about who they have to support them. And this portion of the lessons can really assist in understanding that individual circle of support that can really help them provide additional guidance. Again, the guided group discovery and the resources shared today have and can be a beneficial tool that we can add to our toolbox to help an individual pave the way to work as well as financial well-being. So knowing we're almost out of time, what I do want to do is I do want to get through a couple questions that have come in before we go on. All right, let's see here. Rebecca, the first question is the 2017 edition the latest publication?
Yeah, of the guided group discovery, yes. We are, within the next month or so, we will be posting a youth edition. So we've been doing youth projects both, as I mentioned, in Oregon, but also in Philadelphia. And in Philadelphia, we've been doing it both in schools as well as in the juvenile justice program and some after-school entrepreneurship programs and things like that. And based on that, we've created another version that is really specific for young people who may not have a lot of exposure to the world of work and who may need different kinds of interactive activities. So we will be posting a youth version and a veterans version, one that's specific for veterans who, may be trying to figure out the next step after military service, whether or not they were war wounded or not. But, sometimes it's hard to translate into what that next step might be. So we will have those other two versions. But yes, the 2017, we had a number of field test versions as we were, working with different partners in different populations. But that should be the most recent one. So thanks. And there was a question I saw in the chat that said, do you encourage the use of networking skills with families and friends in the celebration in Lesson 5? And, not specifically, but that's a great idea. I mean, I think any opportunities for people to practice their networking pitch is a good one, and doing it with people that you trust and getting feedback and just having that practice is a great idea. So thanks for that question. That may have just come to me.
Great. Yes, so we have a few more we're going to try to get in. So for those who've asked about the PowerPoint, you will receive the PowerPoint after the webinar, and it will be emailed out. Rebecca, another question that came in is, what skills and qualities do good discovery professionals possess? Any professional background lead to better discovery process?
So I assume that means for the facilitators, right? Do you think that's what?
I think that's what it's getting
qualities for a facilitator. I think just someone who isn't controlling, who is willing to, kind of let people, really work their way through some of this, but someone who has had some training and facilitation. I need to say that both for the self-guided materials and the guided group discovery materials, it gives tips to facilitators. So if you haven't done a lot of it, it does give you some guidance of what to do as a facilitator. But someone who, is comfortable getting discussion going, calling on people, making sure that everyone has a voice, using some of the icebreakers that are suggested to get everyone talking. But I don't think that you need any professional training. We continue to hear about people just picking up the materials and using them with different groups. The parents group that I mentioned, is one where, it was just a group of parents who really want to make sure that the next step for their transitioning youth with disabilities is going to be a good one. So they just took it upon themselves, not necessarily with any training. But the more background you have in facilitation, or the more practice, I think the better you get at it.
Great. So we have 1 minute left, and again, I apologize for the technical difficulty we had at the beginning. There are several questions that have come in, and unfortunately, we won't be able to address them all on this webinar due to the time frame here. But in the chat box, I did put an email address. It's ask@ndi-inc.org. After the webinar, if you have additional questions, please send them to that email address, and we will be sure to address your questions and respond. And also, you'll be receiving the materials after the webinar. Again, it's ask@ndi-inc.org. And just to follow up on that last question, Rebecca, is that to be a facilitator, so you shared that, but is there technical assistance available to address any questions that might come up about this process? So is there a specific email that they could send to the Lead Center, or a certain resource for technical assistance?
Yeah, no, I mean, we'd be happy to respond to questions. And once you get the webinar, you'll have all of our email addresses, so emailing to myself or to Nancy Buteau would probably be the best. I realized I also wanted to give some examples of customized jobs, and I didn't get to do that. But if you go to the customized employment link on our website, there's a document that's full of success stories of customized jobs if you want to get a sense of what a customized job might look like and what that process is. So I encourage you to go there. If you can't find it, shoot me an email and I'll send you the link to it.
Great. All right. Perfect. Well, with that, I would like to say thank you to Rebecca for sharing this information with us today. I'd also like to say thank you to our colleagues Maggie Redden and Katie Achenbach for all of the behind-the-scenes work that they do to provide help put on these webinars. Again, if you have any additional questions, please send them to ask@ndi-inc.org. We hope you'll join us on Wednesday, April 10th at 3 p.m. for our next webinar as we recognize National Financial Capability Month. And that will be done again on April 10th, and you will receive additional information on that webinar coming up as well. With that, again, I'd like to thank the NDA team, again, for all the work, for Rebecca for sharing this information and the great work from the LEAD Center. And I also want to say thank you to all of you for making a real economic impact for individuals with disabilities and their full circle of support. So with that, we thank you for joining us today. Have a great day, everyone.